It has been an incredible weekend, but I woke up to see some headline news yesterday that I found to be very disturbing. I want to share that now, and it begs the question, is Bank of America racist? So we're going to go deep on that right now and talk about how that might set us up for an economic bubble or a housing market bubble. I've done so much content about recently talking about how things are not the same in the lending industry as it relates to the housing market, but that might not be true anymore. So I want to go deep onto that. And I wanted to invite my friend Kevin. Now, Kevin, you may know from YouTube, he is an incredible content creator. He talks a lot about financial preparedness. So I thought it would be relevant to add him into this discussion so we can work through it with you so that you can make the best decisions for yourself, for your family, and for your financial bottom line. So let's get into it right now, and be sure to stick around into the end because I've got some very, very critical data that I think you must know. Kevin, what's up, my man?
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It's going good. I saw some headline news, and I know we talked a little bit before we jumped on here, but I'm curious, what did you think? Did you see that news? What'd you think?
I saw it just the other day, and it reminded me of a similar headline that I saw actually a few years ago when the stimulus check program was rolling out. But it caught my attention. But as with most of these headlines that hit mainstream media, what I tend to do is I tend to pretty much ignore face value, do a little bit more of a deep dive, and really try to understand what are they actually saying, what could this possibly really mean, and where did this really come from. It was my initial reaction before I actually dove in and did my research.
I had so I basically had the exact same reaction, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, "Oh my gosh, this screams reverse racism." To be honest with you, if I look at just the headline news, it just doesn't make any sense.
I don't want to get extremely political, but whether it screams racism or reverse racism, unfortunately, this is a common narrative of what we've seen a lot here recently of just trying to further create more divide.
100%. Given my analytical nature and my background as being a stockbroker, I typically will look at whatever the headline news is. I'm going to analyze it more thoroughly, and I'm going to get to the truth as to what it is, because I know the media likes to give out a lot of misinformation. I know a lot of content creators like to go out there and take data and misapply it. But after doing some analysis on this, I've come to my own conclusions, and I'm certainly interested in hearing what you think. Let's dive into it right now and react in real time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Me personally, I prefer to give the truth. I know some people may feel as though the truth is a little grim, a little hard to digest, but I think it's better than sugarcoating it or presenting inaccurate information. But let's do it.
All right, so this is one of the first headlines that I saw, and I'm just reading it. Bank of America now offering 0 down payment mortgages for Black, Latino, first-time home buyers. And I just was like, what's happening? This can't be true. And if it is true, I need to get to the bottom of it, right?
Did they leave out some critical information where it says Bank of America now offering 0 down mortgages for Black, Latino, white, Asian, Indian, Native American, whatever first-time home buyers? Did they just leave out the rest of everybody else?
Yeah, pretty much. So there's no asterisks either. I looked if they were going to kind of drill down a little bit further, but let's do that ourselves because I found some more information. But what this really begs the question, and I know this is, I'll get to this point as we progress, but I know there are a lot of people out there that have been talking about the Great Reset. I know you got the IMF out there talking about the Great Reset, and they've said things, or certainly believe that they've said that you will own nothing and like it. And so these types of headlines make me ask more questions, and I'm going to go through that as we continue here. But let's look at this next article.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum has apparently an agenda. Apparently 2030 is the year, but part of that is owning nothing and liking it. But continue.
Well, I'm not putting on my tinfoil hat right now, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there are a lot of people that believe there is an institutional and a governmental push to turn most places into a renter nation, specifically the United States. And I have resisted that all along. But when I see this news and I go through this analysis, it makes me question even more what's really happening here. So I'm not trying to alarm anybody. My intent is always to give the best information so that you can make the best decisions for yourself, for your family, and for your financial bottom line. But there's a lot to dig into right now. So I went out there, I looked at a bunch of different articles that basically all had the same inflammatory headline news. And then I finally landed on one, which was actually at the Florida Realtors site. And it seems to be a little bit less inflammatory and seems to give us some more information. And what it says is that Bank of America offers no down, no closing cost loans. It made me read a little bit further, and it goes on to say, first-time Black or Hispanic home buyers in select U.S. neighborhoods, including Miami, can qualify for a no down payment, no closing cost loan. I'm not going to read the whole article, but it landed on a section which talks about the Community Affordable Loan Solution as a special purpose credit program. Now, full disclosure, I've never heard of that. So I wanted to do a little bit more research into that to see what it is. Full disclosure, these are not the type of things that I am current on. These are not really the type of things that I am looking at up until I see something like what we saw today and must know more information. And the thing, I'm not going to read all of it, but what you need to know is that the FDIC is who insures banks, right? This is a government institution. And one of the concerns that was highlighted in this article or in this statement from the FDIC is that previously some stakeholders expressed uncertainty as to the treatment of the ECOA and Regulation B special purpose credit programs under the Fair Housing Act. On December 7, 2021, HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, this is the government, released guidance concluding that the special purpose credit program instituted in conformity with this program that I'm not going to read the title of again, generally do not violate the FHA, which means to me, it violates the FHA. What do you think?
Generally. I mean, I don't even understand how an agency such as the FDIC can legitimately put out a document quite like this that says generally we don't break the rules.
Yeah, we don't break the rules until we do. And so because we generally don't, then it's generally good until it's generally bad for you. So let's see how this puts us at risk, because what I'm seeing right now is what I've talked about in the past. I've talked about that the government is going to do things to pull a rabbit out of their hat so that they can stimulate the housing market. And they can't print money. They can't do what they've done in the past, but they're going to do something. Now, in Florida, we've seen that through the Homes for Heroes program. It's a great idea, but the truth is, most people who qualify for that program are not able to buy a house in my market because they're already priced out of my market. But this seems to be a much bigger scope. It's on a federal level. It's only in select cities right now, but there are a lot of them. And I suspect at some point this is going to be in every city, which exposes us to a market risk and a bubble that we've been protected from, which we're creating right now. And I'll show you what that looks like. Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one who thinks this too, but Yahoo Finance, which again is not exactly what I would call the authority on financial breaking news, but 2008 all over again. Bank of America just launched a test of zero down payment, zero closing cost mortgages for minority communities. Now, we've already debunked that it's minority communities. It's actually not. It's for buyers that meet certain criteria, that have certain economic needs. And I know you've done some research on that, Kevin. So why don't you talk a little bit about what those guidelines are?
Yeah, because to me, from what I'm seeing, ultimately what they're saying is that they're going to offer this option, this program, this community affordable loan solution. And, it will be available. And this is according to an article that I have pulled up here. It will be available in certain cities, including Black and or Hispanic Latino neighborhoods. So to me, that just says that based on previous data, based on key performance metrics, they're saying that in these cities that they're going to launch this program in, which they're mentioning Charlotte, in North Carolina. They're mentioning Dallas. They're mentioning Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. Within these cities, historically, this is going to help Black and Latinos move towards home ownership by eliminating the down payment, reducing the credit score, or eliminating the credit score requirement. Yahoo Finance here says zero closing costs, and help them who are typically statistically more likely to be denied for a mortgage in comparison to other ethnic groups.
All right, so I wanted to share this particular headline and then let the video play a little bit here. It appears to me there's some serious polarization that's going on here. There's some serious incitement going on here, and I get that headline news is clickable and that it sells. I'm going to debunk it completely.
About this program and how effective you think it will be at bridging the racial wealth gap. Remember, that's also caused by just straight up racism. And if you think a program like this may be replicated on a national scale.
Man, I mean, home ownership is probably one of the best wealth building tools out there. If you want to look at it from bridging a racial wealth gap, statistically, there are less Black homeowners in comparison to other ethnic groups. I don't think that the housing market is racist, and I don't even think that the banks are racist. But I also think that this program is being mislabeled and incorrectly headlined to get clicks.
I couldn't agree with you more. And so when I found that article, and then I've looked at a bunch of them today, and I watched that video, it just didn't really sit well with me. And what's interesting at the end of this is the editor's note. Editor's note: the initial version of this story wrongly stated that only Black and Hispanic borrowers are eligible for a mortgage under the Bank of America's Community Affordable Loan Solution Program. In fact, the program is eligible to all borrowers based on their income and home location. Ta-da!
Yeah, they don't want to share that information out the gate. They want to create controversy. They want to stir the pot. Whoever it is behind it, perhaps maybe even wants to further create that divide for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious here that it can't be just for Black and Latino. That would be ridiculous.
Which brings me back to how I started this video. Is Bank of America racist? And the answer to that question is no, they're not racist. They're bankers and they want business. But here's where it gets a little bit more conspiratorial. Now, Bank of America is one of the biggest banks in the United States, hence the name. And Bank of America was one of those companies that was too big to fail. Bank of America, back in the financial crisis, was on the brink of going under. And they were one of the biggest recipients of government intervention, government stimulus. And Warren Buffett came in and bought an enormous amount of stock in Bank of America, preferred stock in Bank of America. The big thing here that we started with and I led into was the you will own nothing and you will like it theory, right? And the thought that there is a coordinated hit job to create a renter nation state. Now, I don't know that that's true, but what's very interesting here is while Bank of America is not racist, Bank of America, to me, is the arm of the government because they're basically owned by the government. And they're not alone, right? There are a lot of these institutions, BlackRock, Blackstone. If you look at the corporate structure and the people who run these companies, you'll find that a lot of them have political ties or are bought out completely. In some cases, have direct ties to the IMF. So it makes me ask the question, is this a coordinated hit job? And let me show a little bit more on that. I think I've been using the term IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, and that's not what I meant. What I meant was the World Economic Forum. So I got confused with what I was saying, but that's what I meant. If we look into Bank of America a little bit further, look at their largest institutional ownership you're going to find is Bank of America, excuse me, Berkshire Hathaway, which is Warren Buffett, the Vanguard Group, BlackRock, S&G, Fidelity, JP Morgan, Capital Research, the list goes on and on. There is massive institutional ownership in the company. And if you look at the institutional ownership of these particular institutions who have voting rights and stakes in the company, you're going to find that a lot of them tend to lean more towards what I was saying before with the World Economic Forum, that they have a vested interest in creating a renter nation because they own all the properties and would benefit from those rental increases. Now, again, this is not necessarily going to happen, but it's interesting because if the people who are getting these special loans, they don't qualify for a loan based on credit during normal standards, and they don't have the money for a down payment as per normal standards, they're getting this special financing, which is great. I want everyone to own a home, but they're also most susceptible to an economic change and probably the most likely to default in the event that the market tanks, right? So if they're purchasing homes with these new loans at today's price and the market corrects 20 or 30%, they're negative equity. Who's more likely to default on those loans? Somebody who is, it doesn't even matter who's more likely. At the end of the day, who gets to get those properties and those assets back? Bank of America, who's owned by the government.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you could theoretically be potentially setting up a way for government to come in and own more real estate by allowing less than qualified buyers the opportunity to sign on the dotted line and close on these homes, knowing good and well that they don't really qualify in traditional underwriting standards, only to probably have very little of a cash reserve and be very extremely vulnerable in today's job market and a high risk of foreclosure. Then when you add on top of that the fact that they have really no skin in the game in the form of a down payment tied to this property, no equity to speak of. If you just were to apply basic logic, you would see that there's going to be a portion of folks out there that are much more likely to walk away, toss those keys back, like you said before, and then ultimately allow the bank to step in and reclaim ownership of those properties.
And what I find to be most disturbing by this whole scenario is we are creating a bubble that didn't exist as of yesterday, and we're adding fuel to the fire of the already tenuous market dynamics that exist right now. So here in my market, we've seen a radical increase in supply of homes. We've seen a big drop in demand for homes, and that changes market within market. If we go big and we go macro and we apply this right now, it's in these selected cities. But I suspect the government is looking to find a way to stimulate the economy without printing money and without doing some of the things that they've done in the past. This is a way to create a bubble, which puts everybody at risk. And that just happened today.
Why does the government continue to solve a problem of a previous bubble by creating yet another bubble?
That's the $1 million question that I don't know. And the only thing that is going to potentially solve that issue is the government officials leaning in and actually working together to get things done, hopefully getting new people in to come up with some innovative ideas, which really are just common sense. But we can't continue to kick the can down the road the way we've done it in the past because nothing's working.
I mean, I don't want to steer your video in the wrong direction, but you're talking about more of the folks in these elected officials coming together to try to solve a problem for the genuine good of the American people. But more than likely, most of these folks are probably part of the WEF, wish they were, hope to be, and or huge stakeholders in the companies you have listed here that have the most to gain from this. So I find it very, very hard to believe that they would ever actually do anything that would really help us all.
No, it seems as though this is a coordinated hit job so that they can help themselves. They're looking to distinguish the fire by throwing on more gasoline. So this does not really bode very well for future market or future economic conditions. But we don't share this to scare you. We're sharing this so that you can understand what's happening in real time so that you can make the best decisions for yourself, for your family, and for your financial bottom line. So, irrespective of market conditions, irrespective of economic conditions, it is always a good market for someone. There are always opportunities to trade around volatility. I'm going to be creating content in the future to share how I've done that in the past for clients as I was a stockbroker for 20 years. But I really think that we must have our eyes wide open. We must be totally aware of what's happening, and we can't take the bait. This isn't racist Bank of America. It's self-serving Bank of America. And it's self-serving. These are corporations that are in this for a profit. And potentially this could be a corporation that's in it for profit that the government is looking to continue to add to whatever their plan is to make this into a rental nation, which again, I don't know if that's true, but I would be irresponsible if I did not share it with you as I see it in real time.
Chris, I got a lot to say, honestly. Number one, I don't really see this program working for its intended purpose based on the headline that mainstream media has chose to use to get people to pay attention to it. And I would be hard pressed. Now, granted, I haven't done a ton of research on it, but I'd be hard pressed to find Bank of America actually release a statement that includes this headline of Black, Hispanic, Latino, etc. But if you pay attention to what they're describing here, it says that the loans are subject to rigorous underwriting and are based on credit guidelines, including on-time bill payments, including rent, utilities, phone, and auto insurance payments. Eligibility is based on income and home location. No minimum credit score or mortgage insurance is required. Now, the mortgage insurance kind of scares me there. But if we step back and look at what they say here, there's no minimum credit score required, but they're going to use rigorous underwriting based on credit guidelines, including on-time bill payments. Well, to me, if they're using rigorous underwriting and they're basing it on-time payments, that means more than likely you probably had good credit to begin with. So the need to bypass a minimum credit score is probably a moot point because you're not going to have on-time payments and bad credit.
Well, so my question would be, is the rigorous underwriting standard similar to generally not violating federal handbook? Right? So I don't know I don't know what that means. And if it is accurate and true that they're actually going out there and underwriting these loans the right way, well, then what's the purpose of this program to begin with? Because there are lots of programs out there for this type of particular buyer, but there's also all kinds of different grants and aids similar to this too. So is this really a new program, or is this just
Well,
something new?
Well, if you want to get into the generally not violating, then, typically, if you're a first-time home buyer, and usually first-time home buyers have difficulty making down payments, a common occurrence is to receive a gift. You receive a gift, you produce a letter, you provide it to the underwriter, it goes in the file, everybody understands where the money came from. We move on, you get 3.5% down, everybody's happy. But in this situation, let's just say we generally don't follow the standard rules of underwriting, and now we allow new first-time home buyers to receive gifts from all sorts of places, allowing more and more folks to invest in these properties that aren't actually first-time home buyers. So let's just say, devil's advocate here,
Right.
that there's outside interests. There's outside investors that want to go into these neighborhoods, go into these markets, and scoop up these properties now without having to put the down payment down. How hard would it be for them to find someone to apply as a first-time home buyer and give them what they need, which is probably really nothing, for the simple fact that you don't even need a down payment now or closing costs, and get these folks out in front of them, possibly, backing them up with whatever they need. to buy these homes to then potentially possibly turn them into rental properties.
Right. So you're talking about a straw man buyer. The unintended consequences that exist for almost every program that's out there. I mean, you know, I think it's common knowledge that every program that there is going to be exploited to the nth degree by anybody who can find a way to exploit a gap in the system. Based on what you just shared, is something that could be much worse disaster than anything I just described.
But with that being said, I will say that me personally, I take advantage of any and every program out there in pretty much all scenarios because it just makes financial sense. Why work harder when you don't have to? Work smarter, not harder. But for anyone who actually does qualify, who's looking to buy, that, you know, like you have said before, or have made the right decisions to say, this is where I want to live. Yes, I can afford it. This is what I want to do. I'm not planning on moving or selling in the next 2 or 3 years or any short-term time period like that. I would strongly encourage anyone who's in that position, who possibly was working to save up that down payment, to take advantage of these programs. Now, granted, with that being said, as the interest rates continue to climb, obviously the lower the principal balance that you carry on the mortgage is going to be better for you, and lower the overall total interest paid. But you kind of got to weigh those two sides of the coin there on how much cash you want to reserve and how much you want to reduce your principal balance. But for anyone who actually really does want to be a first-time home buyer and take advantage of this opportunity, I would definitely say go for it.
Oh,
regardless of what your skin color is.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's reel it back in for a second here, right? So if you're thinking about buying a home and taking advantage of this program, right? And I don't mean taking advantage in a bad way. I'm saying take advantage of it, capitalize on it, right? If this sets you up for what you want and what you need, and you've got clarity on what your financial outlook looks like, and you have total clarity on having some savings, job security, and timeline, then absolutely, this is a fantastic program. And that's irrespective of skin color completely. The fact that they're talking about that just makes me furious, which is why I'm doing this video in the first place. But if this is a good program for you and it's right for you and you've done your research and you've done your homework, then absolutely take advantage of it. I'm more concerned about the potential for fraud, the potential for abusing this, and the potential for what it could look like on the back end for Bank of America and potentially others, and that getting exploited and that being taken advantage of, which could then create a bubble of epic proportions. And we got enough problems as it is anyways. But I agree with you. If this is
almost
right,
like it's almost like Bank of America just can't get enough. Yeah, it says Bank of America is fined $225 million for mishandling pandemic unemployment benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just tied up in. And then if you talk about pandemic benefits, we're talking about these companies and large corporations that took huge advantage of the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Chris. A misuse, an abuse, and fraud.
So be careful. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Be careful. You can't trust the bank. You can't trust the government. And the only thing you can trust is yourself and your due diligence. So be sure to do that before you make any decision, and trust headline news.
Yeah, trust that mainstream media will try to mislead you.
100%. All right. Well, Kevin, I think we covered this in its entirety. Is there anything you want to add here?
You know what? I'll add, trust a really great realtor, because honestly, in my years of investing in real estate and profiting from real estate, I've had I've been fortunate enough to have a great team of realtors that I trust, that have not steered me wrong in any situation. And I haven't worked with you per se in that capacity, Chris, yet, because we haven't made a purchase in Florida until that'll be coming up. But with that being said, I feel as though the way you represent yourself, the information that you share, the videos that you put on your channel, and just these conversations that we have, I feel as though you would be a realtor that I can trust, that would, even say in certain instances, this may not be the best deal. This may not be best for you and your family. And that's what we need. We need people being honest, telling the truth, giving factual information, helping folks make better decisions. especially now as every dollar counts more than ever, and one false move could be very catastrophic.
100%. And thank you. So it is 100% true. Any real estate professional that at any point is leaning in, especially in today's market, with anything that resembles sales pressure, you should run like hell. The truth is, I talk more people out of buying homes if it doesn't align with the things that they've shared with me than you could possibly imagine. So you have to do your due diligence. You have to know your client. You have to do a very thorough onboarding process, or at least I believe that you have to as a real estate professional. And so that's very important. Now, separate to that, I do think also you need to check out Kevin's YouTube page because he is incredible in terms of the content that he shares about financial preparedness. And so I will have a link down below. Please check him out. And if there's anything either one of us can do for you, then reach out directly. We would love to help. So if you're even thinking about moving to or living in South Florida, you got to give me a call, text, DM, send a carrier pigeon, a smoke signal, by any means necessary, because we've got your back when it comes to moving to or living in South Florida. Now, if you would check out my video up here, which I think you're going to love a lot, and separate to that, check out my friend Kevin's channel and his video, which will be in this corner. And if there's anything we can do to serve and support you, reach out right away. And until next time, peace.